Hi there, welcome back to First Chapter Fridays. My name is Virginia, and I'm one of the folks that works here at the library, and I'd like to share a book for you. This is not a brand new one, it's been around for a while, but it's really good. This is a book called Fuzzy Mud. It's by Louis Sachar, and it's kind of a science-y based read, a bit of a mystery, and also a story of friendship. So I'd like to start off by reading the jacket cover, which I always do, just to give you an idea of what the book is about, since we'll only be able to read a little bit. Okay, here we go. Danger, terror, mud. Fifth grader Tamaya Dilwadi and seventh grader Marshall Walsh have been walking to and from Woodridge Academy together since elementary school. But their routine is disrupted when bully Chad Hilligus challenges Marshall to a fight. To avoid the conflict, Marshall takes a shortcut home through the off-limits woods. Tamaya, unaware of the reason for the detour, reluctantly follows. They soon get lost, and then they find trouble. Bigger trouble than anyone could have imagined. In the days and weeks that follow, the authorities and the U.S. Senate become involved, and what they uncover might affect the future of the world. That's a pretty catching description. Here we go. And I want to just show you in the very beginning, there's a little map of the school and also of the woods that the kids wander into. Chapter 1. Tuesday, November 2nd, 11:55 a.m. Well, I want to show you one more thing before we get started. This little circle up here, you can see one tiny little dot. As you go through the book, pages and pages will show as those dots multiply. I'm not going to tell you why, but if you get farther in the book, you'll see that there's more and more of them. Woodridge Academy, a private school in Heathcliff, Pennsylvania, had once been the home of William Heath, after whom the town had been named. Nearly 300 students now attended school in the 4-story black and brown stone building where William Heath had lived from 1891 to 1917, with only his wife and 3 daughters. Tamaya Dilwadi's 5th grade classroom on the 4th floor had been the youngest daughter's bedroom. The kindergarten area had once been the stables. The lunchroom used to be a grand ballroom where elegantly dressed couples had sipped champagne and danced to a live orchestra. Crystal chandeliers still hung from the ceiling, but these days the room permanently smelled of stale macaroni and cheese. 289 kids ages 5 to 14 crammed their mouths with Cheetos, made jokes about boogers, spilled milk, and shrieked for no apparent reason. Tamaya didn't shriek, but she did gasp very quietly as she covered her mouth with her hand. "He's got this super long beard," a boy was saying, "splotched all over with blood." "And no teeth," another boy added. They were boys from the upper grades. Tamaya felt excited just talking to them, although so far she had been too nervous to actually say anything. She was sitting in the middle of a long table, eating lunch with her friends Monica, Hope, and Summer. One of the older boy's legs was only inches from hers. "The guy can't chew his own food," said the first boy, "so his dogs have to chew it up for him, and then they spit it out, and he eats it." "That is so disgusting," exclaimed Monica, but from the way her eyes shone, and when she said it, Tamaya could tell that her best friend was just as excited as she was to have the attention of the older boys. The boys had been telling the girls about a deranged hermit who lived in the woods. Tamaya didn't believe half of what they said. She knew boys liked to show off. Still, it was fun to let herself get caught up in it. "Except they're not really dogs," said the boy sitting next to Tamaya. "They're more like wolves, big and black, with giant fangs and glowing red eyes." Tamaya shuddered. Woodridge Academy was surrounded by miles of woods and rocky hills. Tamaya walked to school every morning with Marshall Walsh, a 7th grade boy who lived 3 houses down from her and on the other side of their tree-lined street. Their walk was almost 2 miles long, but it would have been a lot shorter if they hadn't had to circle around the woods. "So what does he eat?" asked Summer. The boy next to Tamaya shrugged. "Whatever his wolves bring him," he said. "Squirrels, rats, people, he doesn't care, just so long as it's food." The boy took a big bite of his tuna fish sandwich, then imitated the hermit by curling his lips so that it looked like he didn't have any teeth. He opened and closed his mouth in an exaggerated manner, showing Tamaya his partially chewed food. "You are so gross!" exclaimed Summer from the other side of Tamaya. All the boys laughed. Summer was the prettiest of Tamaya's friends, with straw-colored hair and sky-blue eyes. Tamaya figured that was probably the reason the boys were talking to them in the first place. Boys were always acting silly around Summer. Tamaya had dark eyes and dark hair that hung only halfway down her neck. It used to be a lot longer, but 3 days before school started, while she was still in Philadelphia with her dad, she made the drastic decision to chop it off. Her dad took her to a very posh salon that he couldn't afford. As soon as she got it cut, she was filled with regret. But when she got back to Heathcliff, her friends all told her how mature and sophisticated she looked. Her parents were divorced. She spent most of the summer with her dad and 1 weekend each month during the school year. Philadelphia was on the opposite end of the state, 300 miles away. When she returned home to Heathcliff, she always had the feeling that she'd missed something important while she'd been gone. It might have been nothing more than an inside joke that her friends all laughed at, but she always felt a little left out, and it took her a little while to get back into the groove. "He came this close to eating me," one of the boys said, a tough-looking kid with short black hair and a square face. "A wolf snapped at my leg just as I was climbing back over the fence." The boy stood on top of the bench and showed the girls his pant leg for proof. It was covered in dirt, and Tamaya could see a small hole just above his sneaker, but that could have been from anything. Besides, she thought, if he'd been running away from the wolf, then the hole would have been in the back of his pants, not the front. The boy stared down at her. He had blue, steel-like eyes, and Tamaya got the feeling that he could read her mind and was daring her to say something. She swallowed, then said, "You're not really allowed in the woods." The boy laughed, and the other boys laughed too. "What are you going to do?" he challenged. "Tell Mrs. Thaxton?" She felt her face redden. "No, don't listen to her," said Hope. "Tamaya's a real goody two-shoes." The word stung. Just a few seconds earlier, she had been feeling so cool talking with the older boys. Now they were all looking at her as if she was some kind of a freak. She tried making a joke out of it. "I guess I'll only wear one shoe from now on." Nobody laughed. "You are kind of a goody-goody," said Monica. Tamaya bit her lip. She didn't get why what she had said had been so wrong. After all, Monica and Summer had just called the boys disgusting and gross, but somehow that was okay. If anything, the boys seemed proud that the girls thought they were disgusting and gross. When did the rules change, she wondered? When did it become bad to be good? Across the lunchroom, Marshall Walsh sat amid a bunch of kids, all talking and laughing loudly. On one side of Marshall sat one group, and on his other side sat a different group. Between these two groups, Marshall sat silently and ate alone. Chapter 2, Sunray Farm. In a secluded valley 33 miles northwest of Woodridge Academy was Sunray Farm. You wouldn't know it was a farm if you saw it. There were no animals, no green pastures, and no crops. None that grew big enough for anyone to see with the naked eye, at least. Instead, what you would see, if you made it past the armed guards, past the electric fence topped with barbed wire, past the alarms and security cameras, would be rows and rows of giant storage tanks. You also wouldn't be able to see the network of tunnels and underground pipes connecting the storage tanks to the main laboratory, also underground. Hardly anyone in Heathcliff knew about Sunray Farm, and certainly not Tamaya or her friends. Those who had heard of it had only vague ideas about what was going on there. They might have heard of Bioline, but probably didn't know exactly what it was. A little more than a year before, that is, about a year before Tamaya Dilwadi had cut her hair and started 5th grade, the United States Senate Committee on Energy and the Environment held a series of secret hearings regarding Sunray Farm and Bioline. The following testimony is excerpted from that inquiry. So now I'm going to be a couple different people because this is the testimony from the Senate committee. Senator Wright: You worked at Sunray Farm for 2 years before being fired. Is that correct? Dr. Mark Humbard: No, that is not correct. They never fired me. Senator Wright: I'm sorry, I'd been informed. Dr. Mark Hubbard: Well, they may have tried to fire me, but I'd already quit. I just hadn't told anyone yet. Senator Wright: I see. Senator Foote: But you no longer work there? Dr. Mark Hubbard: I couldn't be in the same room with Fitzy a minute longer. That man's crazy. And when I say crazy, I mean 100% bananas. Senator Wright: Are you referring to Jonathan Fitzman, the inventor of Bioline? Dr. Mark Hubbard: Everyone thinks he's some kind of genius, but who did all the work? Me! That's who, or at least I would have if he had let me. He'd pace around the lab, muttering to himself, his arms flailing. It was impossible for the rest of us to concentrate. He'd sing songs, and if you'd ask him to stop, he'd look at you like you were the one who was crazy. You wouldn't even know he was singing. And then, out of the blue, he'd slap the side of his head and shout, No, no, no! And suddenly, I'd have to stop everything I'd been working on and start all over again. Senator Wright: Yes, we've heard that Mr. Fitzsimmons can be a bit eccentric. Senator Foote: Which is one reason why we are concerned about Bioline. Is it truly a viable alternative to gasoline? Senator Wright: This country needs clean energy, but is it safe? Dr. Mark Humbard: Clean energy? Is that what they're calling it? There's nothing clean about it. It's an abomination of nature. You want to know what they're doing at Sunray Farm? You really want to know? Because I know. I know. Senator Foote: Yes, we want to know. That's why you've been called before this committee, Mr. Humbard. Dr. Mark Humbard: Doctor. Senator Foote: Excuse me? Dr. Mark Humbard: It's Dr. Humbard, not Mr. Humbard. I have a PhD in microbiology. Senator Wright: Our apologies. Tell us, please, Dr. Humbard, what are they doing at Sunray Farm that you find so abominable? Dr. Mark Humbard: They have created a new life form, never before seen. Senator Wright: A kind of high-energy bacteria, as I understand it, to be used as fuel? Dr. Mark Humbard: Not bacteria, slime mold. People always confuse the two, but both are microscopic, but they are really quite different. We begin with simple slime mold, but Fitzy altered its DNA to create something new, a single-celled, living creature that is totally unnatural to this planet. Sunray Farm is now growing these man-made microorganisms, these tiny Frankensteins, so that they can burn them alive inside of automobile engines. Senator Foote: Burn them alive? Don't you think that's a bit strong, Dr. Humbard? We're talking about microbes here. After all, every time I wash my hands or brush my teeth, I kill hundreds of thousands of bacteria. Dr. Mark Humbard: Just because they're small doesn't mean their lives aren't worthwhile. Sunray Farm is creating life for the sole purpose of destroying it. Senator Wright. But isn't that what all farmers do? And that is the end of the chapter. And again, just want to show you that circle off in the corner. We started out with 1, and now there are 4. So that is just the very beginning of Fuzzy Mud. It's a great book. It's really a page turner. I really enjoyed this a lot. If you can come and check out the hardcover of this, but it's also available on Libby, the Libby app, I believe in an audio as well as an ebook. If you are interested in science with a little bit of mystery involved, I highly recommend this book. It's really a great read. It gives you something to think about as well. So take care. I hope I'll see you here in the library, and maybe you'll check out Fuzzy Mud. Take care. Bye-bye.